Good morning, and thank you for joining the Houston Minority Business Development Agency's annual Export Academy. I am your host, Director Marchette Turner Ray, and my team and I are excited to have you join us this morning. Let me go over a few housekeeping rules before I present to you our export expert. All attendees will be muted. Only the panelists will be able to speak. We encourage you to type your questions into the chat as you think of them, as the last few moments of this webinar will be reserved for Q&A. I referenced my team a second ago, and of course they are here. Please virtually welcome our program coordinator, Ms. Jessica Vasquez, our two business advisors, Ms. Deirdre Sutton and Ms. Tanya McGilbert. Now, let me introduce you to our expert this morning. Ms. LaTanya Darden leads the Minority and Women-Owned Business Division at Exim Bank. In this role, she manages and counsels business development officers regarding best practices in advising businesses on export resources. In the last 5 years, $2 billion, with a B, dollars in export financing was provided to minority and women-owned businesses, and over 3,000 businesses were assisted. Prior to her current role, LaTanya guided exporters through the Working Capital Guarantee Program, as well as export credit insurance. She is an asset to Exim Bank and has a passion for guiding businesses through the export ecosystem, ensuring that they understand the policies and procedures of Exim programs and other export resources. In addition, the portfolio activity of organizations that LaTanya manages has grown tremendously due to her diligence in educating the organizations and businesses she serves. LaTanya represents Exim Bank on the recently established Advancing Women in Business Council. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Administration of Justice from the University of the District of Columbia and resides in Washington, D.C. Again, please help me virtually welcome Ms. LaTanya Darden of Exim Bank. Ms. Darden, take it away.
Thank you, Marchette, for that warm welcome. Good morning to everyone for joining us this morning. Before I start, I'd like to thank you, Marchette, Jessica, and the entire team at the Houston MBDA Business Center for including Exim in this morning's discussion and your efforts in organizing this export series. So as Marchette said, I am LaTanya Darden, manager of the Minority and Women-Owned Business Outreach Division at Exim. The division was created over 20 years ago and is mandated in the bank's charter to exist. Our focus or goal is to raise awareness about the resources available to U.S. businesses that support their export activities. Okay, who is Exim? Who are we? Hold on, I skipped a minute there, went a little too far. Okay, Exim is a little shy of 90 years old and is the export credit agency for the United States. Most countries have an export credit agency that supports the export activities in their respective country. And so this is what our mission is for businesses here in the US. Our headquarters is in Washington, D.C., and there are regional offices located nationwide. We do have Exim representation there at the UZIAC, where Eric Miller is the Exim representation there in Houston. We offer financing that includes export credit insurance, loan guarantees, and other products to assist businesses as they compete for global sales. Our programs complement private sector finance, and we don't compete with the private sector. We actually work with them to fill in gaps by assuming risks that they are not willing to assume. And we level the playing field for U.S. businesses to compete with global exporters around the world. Excuse me, I have sinus issues this morning. So our programs level the playing field for U.S. businesses to compete with exporters around the world. They also minimize risk for businesses as well as lenders. Our products can also provide access to capital, often supplementing that commercial financing. I will explain these features later in the presentation. Selling American-made products gives you, the exporter, an advantage because American-made products and services are highly regarded and wanted around the world. Exporting also gives you an opportunity to expand your customer base. I am often asked the question, well, what's in it for me? Why should I export? And simply, it is because you are offering services performed by US-based personnel and have American-made products. That is why you should actually consider exporting. Businesses that don't export actually limit their growth. And as I'm sure you've heard before, 2/3 of the world's buying power is beyond US borders. So why not take advantage of the export resources available for you to expand and compete in the global marketplace, especially since the majority of these resources are of no cost or very minimal cost to you. Minority-owned businesses, just a little bit about our division. So the Minority and Women-Owned Business Outreach Division consists of a group of business development officers who assist businesses to navigate the export landscape. It can be very daunting and can be sometimes frustrating to actually navigate the federal government or any government or organization's alphabet soup, if you will, with all of its acronyms and processes. So that's why we are here to help navigate that. Again, our division is mandated in the bank's charter to exist. And actually, Exim Bank as a whole is part of an entire ecosystem of export resources that can be challenging to sift through without experienced and knowledgeable consultants to guide you, such as myself and my team and Eric Miller and the team at the UZIAC. Our primary focus or mission is to raise awareness about Exim Bank as well as other export business resources. We offer free seminars, webinars, roundtables, attend trade shows and major conferences, speak on panels. Any opportunity offered to us to get the word out about XM, we take advantage of that. We also provide free consultations and make introductions and connections to our partners to help guide businesses to the next level if they're not quite ready for Exim Bank. This fiscal year, the Minority and Women-Owned Business team hosted more than 160 events and over $345 million supported minority and women-owned businesses. Here are some of the businesses or business populations, that we serve. Here in the middle, we serve businesses owned by minorities, women, Native Americans, businesses located in rural areas, and veterans, just to name a few. Now, as I mentioned earlier, 95% of your customer base is located outside of the United States. So why not take advantage of the resources that are available to you, especially at the low or no cost of those resources? Now, only 1% of companies in the United States export. And the reason is the fear of the unknown or the risk associated with exporting. And we are here to alleviate or minimize that risk with our products and services that XM offers. Now at XM, we are definitely small business focused. Over 90% of the bank's transactions supported small business exporters. There's no transaction that is too small. I've actually seen transactions as small as a few $1,000s that XM has provided support for. And also, I will talk a little bit later about services. A lot of businesses that we come in contact with are actually service-based business. They don't have a tangible product that they export, So if you are a service business, don't dismiss receiving support from Exim Bank. As long as your customer is outside of US borders, you can potentially receive support from Exim. Now, our products cover the spectrum from the beginning or at the initiation of the negotiation of your contract with our pre-export financing, which is with our working capital loan guarantees, and our post-export financing, which is where our trade credit insurance guarantees with longer repayment terms than working capital comes into play. Now, the question before you is, what is stopping your business from exporting? I'm going to talk about our two main products here going forward, which is, I'll start with the working capital loan guarantee program. This is Exim's access to capital tool. This is a guarantee of 90% we provide lenders that we have an agreement with, known as delegated authority lenders. You can find a list of these lenders on our website, and I'm sorry, my fingers are, this is very sensitive. Lenders typically will not provide an advance or finance loans without Exim guarantee, especially if they have an export receivable attached to it. They're more comfortable and willing with the guarantee in place. Proceeds from these loans can be used to purchase materials needed to manufacture your product, purchase finished products you may be exporting, any labor or overhead costs or fees associated with the export transaction. Now, here's an overview of the steps to acquire an export working capital loan. Receive a large order, you typically don't receive. You approach your lender, but they're not willing to approve it because your collateral is export related and there is substantial risk involved. However, lenders with Exim's delegated authority, they underwrite or process the loan under Exim guidelines. Lenders with delegated authority are more willing to finance export loans because of the backing or guarantee of the federal government. Now the loan is approved, you now have the capital to fill the order. Now that you received the financing you need to fill the order, there's still a concern about not getting paid. The solution for that concern is the export credit insurance or trade credit insurance, as it is also referred to. Trade credit insurance has 3 benefits. In addition to the ease of doing business internationally, it is a great marketing tool that gives you an advantage when negotiating a sale or a contract. The advantage you have is offering open account or credit terms that you can offer a potential buyer. Typical term limits we see with small businesses are 60 days. However, terms can extend as long as 180 days in some cases. This is attractive for you, the exporter, as well as the buyer, who would rather buy on credit than to pay cash in advance. Buyers will often increase their orders from you or with you because they don't have to pay cash in advance. We all know cash is king, and that's great. However, extending credit terms attracts more customers to you. Exporting without trade credit insurance, I often explain, is equivalent to driving without car insurance. Of course, you can do it, but it's substantial risk involved. And why take on those risks when this tool is available at a minimal cost? So for instance, a $30,000 sale at 65 cents per $100 of the invoice value, your $28,500 is covered for a premium price of $195, which is not paid, that I might add, until you actually ship product. It's not like typical insurances that we're familiar with, where there's a monthly premium whether you use it or not, such as your car insurance. That is not the case for trade credit insurance. You only pay premium when you actually ship your product. So a transaction utilizing trade credit insurance is what you now see. Excuse me. You've identified your customer. You apply for trade credit insurance. When approved, you offer credit terms to the buyer, and your buyer agrees to those terms. Product is shipped, your shipment is reported, and premium is paid at that time. And I must stress that it is important that your shipments are reported. There is an online tool that we use to report those shipments. We also have a broker network that Exim does not charge its customers to utilize. We strongly encourage exporters to use our broker network, and they actually report shipments for exporters as well. Your business qualifies to apply for trade credit insurance if it has 2 to 3 years of operations. You have a DUNS or DMV number and a unique entity identifier number, a UEI number. That's new. The government now requires to access any type of grant or funding from the government. It's not just Exim, it's government-wide that you need that UEI number now. You must also show a positive net worth or confirm profits with account statements and tax returns. And your product, if you're shipping a product or selling a product, it must have at least 51% of US content or components. If it's a service being provided, US personnel must be providing the service either here in the US or abroad. For the Working Capital Guarantee Program, you need a purchase order or a contract to apply for working capital through our delegated lender network. And so, for instance, quite a few businesses we have seen have taken a hit over the past 2 years due to the pandemic. This is something that our underwriters will consider during the process. We all know we saw a lot of businesses that had to close their doors during the pandemic, but that is something that Exim will consider if pre-pandemic and now you're starting to get back into generating those revenues. That is something that we will consider. So Exim supports many industries or sectors, as you see here. But I want to pause a little to talk about a couple of things. First, again, I can't stress enough about services. A lot of businesses feel that because they provide a service that they cannot receive Exim support. That is not always the case. The key to remember, again, is that your customer is located outside of the United States. Also, manufacturing. Last year, I believe in April, Exim has a program for businesses that are manufacturing here in the US, or they may be manufacturing abroad, but they want to start manufacturing here in the US. The program is called the Make More in America program, MMIA, and that is for US manufacturers who are looking to expand their manufacturing operations here in the United States. You must, however, dedicate at least 15% of your products. They must have an export nexus, if you will, or designated for export, 15% of what you're making. So we can discuss that in more detail, or I can put you in contact with the staff here at headquarters who can go into more depth about that program. But that is something available and new that Exim initiated last year. We are also working on a product specifically for minority and women-owned businesses. And the standards will be a little bit more relaxed. We hope to launch or announce that program very soon. We are on the last leg of developing it. We just need to get the approvals from senior management, and hopefully that will be something that I can share with you in the coming months. So again, if you are a service provider, please do not dismiss receiving support from Exim Bank. I can't stress that enough because we do have businesses who are service providers that leverage Exim. Now, we do operate via a charter, and there are some restrictions in that charter for us to exist. For instance, you cannot receive support if you are selling to another country's military, only for humanitarian efforts, such as disaster relief or food drops. In those instances, you can potentially receive support. Also, too, all products must be shipped on a U.S. flagged vessel if they are being shipped. We do have a country limitation schedule. I advise you to visit the schedule often because, as we know, things change worldwide on a daily basis, and support or restrictions in a particular country change. It's typically updated every 6 months, but here lately, it's being updated more frequently than that because of the changes that are occurring worldwide. And here is some additional resources that we utilize to help us spread the word about Exim. You know, we can't possibly do it. We are very small at Exim, no more than 500 employees. And in particular, my team is very small. So we rely on these resources to help us. So first we have our insurance brokers. This is a network of trade credit insurance brokers that assist Exim customers in selecting the best policy for their business needs, report shipments, and in the event you would need to file a claim, they are there for that process as well. We also have our regional export promotion program, REP, organizations that are at the state and local level that assist us in educating the thousands of small businesses that we're mandated to reach. They assist businesses to develop an export business plan, which is very important, such as you need a business plan to access any loans or grants or financing. The same holds true for export. You must have an export business plan, and our rep organizations assist with that process. They also help identify buyers and partners in some instances as well. There are over 50 rep organizations across the US, and you can find the one closest to you on our website or contact us, and we'll plug you in with the regional export promotion program organization closest to you. We have our delegated lender network as well. These are traditional banks or lenders that have an agreement with Exim, and we provide a guarantee to finance export related loans. And the list of our lenders can be found on our website. I encourage you to stay connected with us via these social media platforms here. We are on all of the platforms that you see here, so I invite you to follow us on social media. I also encourage you to subscribe to our webpage, our events page, so you can stay up to date as to free webinars that we're hosting or any other events that are trade related. I also encourage you to sign up with trade.gov. That is another way to stay plugged in or connected with events and initiatives that are ongoing with the Commerce Department. And so now I will turn to my colleague, our rep there in Houston, Eric Miller. Eric, is there anything that you'd like to add or that I've missed?
You did an excellent job as usual, Latanya. Thank you. As she mentioned, I'm in Houston. I cover all of Texas. I'm the regional director. We work together in a collaborative manner when there's an exporter. If it's a minority or women-owned business, I suggest starting with Latanya, and she can bring me in and we can kind of walk through how we can help you. Just to kind of summarize and hit on some of the main points, because we know that this is a lot of information coming at you at one time. why exporting is what we get a lot. You know, I'm a successful business. I'm selling domestically. I'm making money. I'm profitable. Why do I care about moving product to another country? So as she pointed out, I hear two reasons, two big reasons with the information that she provided. So one is the majority of buyers are outside our country, right? So if we look at this as a pie, 5% of it's in the US and 95% of it's outside the US. So more buyers, more customers, more money. The second one, as she pointed out in the slide, less than 1% of US companies are exporting. I mean, that is a telling statistic. One of the other data points that we look at is export value over GDP. So everything we make here in the country, how much of that are we sending to other countries? And we look at it as a ranking. So the US, which is the second largest exporter in the world, China's number one, the second largest exporter in the world, how much of the stuff do we make? How much of the stuff that we make or GDP in the US do we send abroad? It's a small number. So we're ranked between 150 and 160 out of roughly 200 countries. So last I looked, Rwanda was on the left and Haiti was on the right, and we're sandwiched in between it at a roughly 156, ranking 156 out of roughly 200 countries. So to summarize why export, most buyers are outside the United States, and two, not a lot of companies are doing it, right, with those data points. So competitive advantage and more revenue, I think, is the points that we're driving. The export credit insurance, as Latanya pointed out, is a great starting entry product into Exim Bank. It's really about making, we want to make you as a US exporter more competitive and be able to sell more. And the insurance is a big way of doing that. And just to kind of summarize on that point again, so let's say you're making widgets or doing a service to a foreign buyer, offering a service to a foreign buyer. You can't always say, wire me money. Can't always say, wire me money and then I'll ship the product. Because the buyer may say, well, you know, how do I know you're going to ship the product? Right. And you may say, well, I don't want to ship you the product because what if you don't pay me? So there's this, going back to Latanya's point of fear, there's this issue with a payment process of, you know, I'm scared to send it to you and not get paid. And then the buyer's scared to wire you money and you not ship it. So the insurance is a good tool to facilitate that, where you can say, hey, I'm going to send you my product. I'm going to give you 30 days to pay, 60 days to pay, whatever we agree on. And I'm going to get insurance on this payment from Exim Bank. So if the foreign buyer doesn't pay me, then Exim will pay me. So it's a good way to get the sales that you want and satisfy both sides. And it's a small fee. So again, as she pointed out, you know, let's say it's 65 basis points, or 0.65% of your invoice is another way of saying it. So on a $50,000 invoice, you'd pay us $325, and that would insure your payment at 95%. So it's a small fee, right? You want to let $50,000 go on a boat, wave it goodbye, and hope you get paid, but you also want to be protected if you don't get paid, and that's where we can come in. So insurance is a great entry. There's the working capital, as she pointed out. So starting with the problem, as she mentioned in the US, the problem is getting capital from a traditional bank for an export order. So you got a purchase order from a foreign country, right? Let's call it Colombia. You get a PO from Colombia, you're happy, you're excited, you walk over to your bank, hey, I got this big PO, I need some money to make this stuff. As soon as they hear that you're exporting it to Colombia or wherever, the bank closes the doors. They do not like the word export. It's very risky, as she pointed out. So we're not a lender, right? We don't give you the money, but we give the bank a guarantee. So we tell the bank, hey, if the company meets the credit standards, if they're coming in the door with $1 million purchase order and they need 500,000, right? And they got financial statements that show the credibility to borrow the amount they're asking for, but you're only closing the door because of the word export. We say, go ahead and give them the money that they need, and we will co-sign. We're a loan guarantor. So we open up access to that capital. So those are, as she mentioned, the two big tools for exporters. The Make More in America initiative, again, that's a new one to us. and we want to, so we really want to open up exports on projects, on domestic projects. I think this new product came about because of like big projects like LNG, right? Liquid natural gas. When those go online in the US and they go to the bank and they say, hey, this big $1 billion LNG plant, I've got all the credit in the world, all the shareholders, whatever you need to give me this line of credit so I can build this plant. As soon as they start figuring out that they're going to export that LNG, it becomes too risky. And the banks become risk averse, and then they go back to shutting the doors. So we step in and say, hey, if this domestic project has an export nexus, as we call it, as she said, 15% of the revenues are coming from abroad, we can provide a guarantee to the bank so they can give them the money that they need to start this project. So I think you guys have a good reason on the why to export. And I think there was a question in there about Gold Key. If you don't mind, Latanya, you want me to take that one while I'm going? Okay.
Yes.
So Gold Key is a product by the U.S. Commercial Services. There's something called a USIAC, which stands for U.S. Export Assistance Center. So in Houston, I'm in the USIAC along with the U.S. Commercial Services, who's a part of the Department of Commerce. So we're, sister agencies with the same goal. We want to help U.S. companies export. What they offer is what was in the chat thread, the Gold Key. Gold Key is a really good product to help U.S. companies find buyers. So there's almost a federal agency to help you in every step of the way. So they help you find buyers, and we help you finance the transaction. So how do they do that? Under the Gold Key, you pay them a few $100s, and you tell them, here's my company, here's what we do, here's what we sell. We're successful in the U.S. We sell to 6 states, whatever. We want to go to South America. We want to go to Africa, whatever it may be. And what they do is you pay for the product. Again, it's a few $100s, and they will work with the embassy in the country that you want to sell to. Okay, so let's say it's Nigeria or Colombia or somewhere in Europe, Eastern Europe. They'll call the U.S. embassy, say, hey, I've got this U.S. company here. Here's what they do. Here's what they sell. Here's their story. Find me buyers. And what they do is they'll populate a list of leads, let's say a dozen leads, and then they play matchmaker. They say, okay, here, U.S. company, here's some leads for you that buy what you sell, or here's a potential partner, or here's a potential distributor, and they play matchmaker. So usually that's kind of the step one is, let's say I'm only successful here in the US. I don't know where to start to find buyers. We'll start there. They'll find you buyers. And then the buyer may say, or the distributor may say, hey, I like your product. This is what I normally buy. However, I normally buy from China, and China gives me 60-day terms. Can you do that? And then now you can say, probably, let me get insurance from Exim Bank. So we're kind of the step 2 in that exploration process. So now we're financing the transaction. So finding buyers, we finance it. And that's just kind of my summary points, Latanya. Back to you.
Thanks, Eric.
Oh, go ahead, Latanya. I'm sorry.
No. I was just going to thank Eric for coming behind me and making it even more elementary, plain, easy to understand. I know, as he said, this is a lot of information, but again, don't hesitate to contact myself or Eric so we can have a deeper discussion about, what your business model is, or what you are doing, or what you are planning to do as far as your export activities are concerned. I know it's a lot to digest, and it's great that you have the series. I believe it's a 4 or 6 week series focusing on a different topic. Oh, and I'm sorry, I just thought of, so this is direct and indirect exporting. So what I wanted to share was, if you are a business currently supplying a US company, ask the question, where is your product ending on shelves here in the United States or abroad? If they say that the product is ending up on shelves abroad, you are an indirect exporter, therefore qualified to apply for working capital. I So I'm sorry I failed to mention that, but yes, that is something that we advise businesses to do. Say if you are supplying a business here in the US, ask the question. I know sometimes you may want to be apprehensive, and not really want to ask the question, but it's in your best interest to just ask the question, hey, what are you doing with my product? Or what components are you adding to it? And what is the end destination? So wanted to share that as well. And we are open and welcome to come back for any other sessions with specific topics that you have during the series. This is what we do. We love doing it to help the businesses and just raise awareness about Exim and how they can leverage it in their business growth.
Thank you so much, LaTanya and Eric. Before we get to our Q&A, let me just mention that for all of our attendees, if you all attend all 5 virtual sessions starting today, we are having a certificate ceremony on Tuesday, October 10th, and it's in person. And Eric Miller will actually be here with us for that session. But if you attend all 5 virtual sessions, you will receive a certificate on October 10th. So you want to make sure you register and attend all 5 virtual sessions so that you can be present for the in-person session and receive a certificate. We will serve a light lunch. So again, be present for that on October 10th in person. The other thing, again, as I just mentioned, Eric Miller will be here with us on Tuesday, October 10th. It is in person. And so, of course, we'll give you the information on that. I think it was on the flyer that you registered for this webinar. So having said that, let me now turn it over to Ms. Deirdre and Ms. Tanya for questions. Are there any questions in the chat, ladies?
And Ms. LaTanya and Eric might have addressed these, but I'll go through them again. First one, if someone is new to exporting, whom should they contact at Exim Bank to walk them throughout the process?
LaTanya, you're on mute.
I'm sorry. Yes, you can contact me. I believe my information is still here, visible to you by email, or the second email, thegrow.exim.gov, that takes you, it leads you directly to my landing page where you can schedule an appointment at a time and date of your preference.
Okay.
And so what I'll do is I will, ask you how long you've been operating, exactly, are you a service provider, you have a product, what country you would like to export to. So yeah, we can definitely have a deeper conversation. And it may be that too, I will need to loop Eric in if you are located there in Texas, so we can have a deeper discussion as well.
And Tanya, that leads me to another question. So is there a requirement for how long the company needs to have been in business?
Well, we'd like to see, our underwriters like to see 2 to 3 years of operating history, generating revenues in the selling the product that you want to export or providing the service. However, there are sometimes waivers can be utilized to negate those requirements. Again, it would just, depend on, you individually in your business and the growth or lack thereof that you've experienced over the past 2 to 3 years. I mean, new to export, no. If you've only been operating, say, for a year, likely no. We will refer you to one of our rep organizations to help you develop the export business plan, or maybe even SCORE. I'm not sure if you're familiar with SCORE. They're managed by the SBA. We refer there as well. So it just all depends. But for Exim, we do like to see 2 to 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Eric mentioned that you are not the lender, you are the guarantor. Can you provide a scenario or duration of the process to receive the guarantee from Exim Bank?
Okay, so to receive Exim's guarantee, the guarantee is given to lenders. So you would need to apply with one of the lenders on our website who have delegated authority. Our requirements to apply are at least 1 year of business operations, a positive net worth, and a purchase order or a contract from a foreign buyer. You have to have at least those three. In addition, you still would need to meet the requirements of whichever lender you choose to work with. Also, too, if you have a lender you have a relationship with and they're not a delegated lender, you can still apply, make them aware of the Exim guarantee and apply through that lender that you're working with. And that transaction structured in that manner, our underwriters and our working capital division will actually underwrite the loans. If you use a delegated lender, then that lender will underwrite the loan and approve it.
Okay. You mentioned the REPP representatives, their training program in the presentation. Do they come out to you? Is this virtual? Is it free? I mean,
Well, I do know they are free.
okay.
I'm not sure if they have returned to in-person meetings or not. Maybe some have not. I'm not sure. So it depends on the rep organization.
Okay, we'll certainly
And
check
those
that out.
organizations are also listed on our website. So you can go there, you can visit the site and choose one that is closest to you. And you would need to contact the individual listed at that particular rep organization.
Okay,
And the same is true for our delegated lenders as well. You would need to contact the individual listed for specific banks, such as Wells or Huntington or Bank of America. You would need to contact the individual listed because they are trained, Exim trained, and can walk you through the process. If you just go to your branch you normally go and make deposits, they are not going to know or be in a position to best assist you to leverage our programs.
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I just wanted to state, in case there are some joiners on the phone that cannot see the chat, we provided Eric's email address. Yes, and if everybody can see it? Okay. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure they got the email address for both representatives because that's important for follow-up.
Okay, and I
Any
was
questions?
having difficulty earlier sending my presentation. However, I will continue to work with our help desk to send that to you, Marcia. So you
Okay.
can share it with attendees today.
Wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wonderful.
Okay.
Tanya, were there any more questions
Yeah.
in the chat?
Here's a question here. Do you have a database or a program that can refer exporting business directly to our MBEs?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Have a program or a database that can refer exporting business or opportunities directly to the minority businesses in your database? So here's a
No.
question prior to that, Ms. Darden. Jose Andres Rangel asked, are services, specialized staff, and hydrocarbon products, polymer, chemical included in the working capital program at Exim? So if you have an individual business that offers these services or certain products, do you have a database that can locate these services or products and you can reach out to that business directly?
So he's asking about businesses here in the US that offer those services or businesses abroad that want those American products.
I would assume if they're abroad, they're looking for those services or products. Yes.
Okay, we don't have such a database, but I am thinking if they go to export.gov or either a bureau within the Department of Commerce might perhaps have a database. I'm not sure. Eric, are you aware? The database that exists?
So I'm looking here at the questions. Do you have a database or a program which can refer exporting business to our MBEs? So what I'm thinking there, I think you're looking in the right direction, Latanya. I think what that would be is a U.S. commercial service conversation, because going back to the gold key that they offer, where they can find buyers, I think that's what they're asking for. Is there a program that can refer business to us? So the gold key with the U.S. Commercial Services is one, and I think they also. Oh, there was an echo there. Sorry. If you sign up for their customer list, the Department of Commerce, it might also be on export.gov, as Latanya said. There's like a newsletter. I think it goes out like once a month, and sometimes they have leads from foreign
Sorry,
government
Eric.
officials.
If,
Yep.
if you're not speaking, everybody, can you please mute? Because there's a horrible echo.
Yeah, I'm getting that too. Okay, there we go. That's off. Yeah, so once you sign up for their newsletter, again, I think it goes out like once a month. It usually has leads from either foreign governments or foreign private companies that are looking to buy something in that newsletter. So you may want to check that out. Department of Commerce, U.S. Commercial Services, again, export.gov is a good starting point. And then the second question I see there, which was right above it, are services and hydrocarbon products included in the working capital? So the answer is yes. So services can be financed under our export working capital guarantee. So we support U.S. content, right? We want to support U.S. made stuff going into the hands of a foreign buyer. When it's a product, it's easy. And greater than 50% U.S. content to be eligible to work with us. So on a product, it's easy. You look at the cost. If greater than 50% of the cost is U.S. origin, then you're good to go. On services, we look at the citizenship of the provider. And if it's a U.S. citizen or green card holder in the U.S. and they're providing a service to a foreign buyer, that's 100% U.S. content. And you can blend, right? As long as the majority of the U.S. cost well, as long as the majority of the cost is of U.S. origin, then we can consider that in the working capital.
Okay.
Good questions.
Does Exim Bank finance U.S. import? Or it's just export?
Yeah, so we often get that question because import is in the name of the agency, but unfortunately, we do not support anything coming into the country because the mission is to support jobs here in the US. And so the premise is, supporting anything coming in would actually assist that country of origin. It wouldn't necessarily help businesses here in the United States. I think there was one transaction many, many years ago, and it was determined that imports would not grow the US economy. So they did not do additional import support after that, but the name of the agency has not changed, unfortunately. So, but yes, we often do get that. However, there is an organization that can potentially help that I can put you in contact with, especially if you are importing from Africa. So if you contact me, we can have a deeper discussion and I can give you that contact information.
Okay, wonderful. And I know Eric mentioned U.S. Commercial Services. Actually, next Tuesday, they will be our export expert, Mr. Jason Wilson, next Tuesday. So to all of our attendees, you may want to log in so you can hear from U.S. Commercial Services on next Tuesday.
Right.
Any further questions? I know we got a lot of good information today, and we are so thankful for that. Are there any other questions, Tanya?
I see, I'm getting to the end, so I might not have all the questions, but do you know?
I think Ms. Latanya just provided us the instruction for importing from Africa.
Oh,
That was a
okay.
question. You just
Yeah.
went over
It
that.
cut off.
Yes. Yeah,
And
the
then-
organization, and I just became aware of this. I was at a conference with them last week, and you may have heard of them, Prosper Africa. And the gentleman there, I cannot think of his name offhand, but he, he said that they are waiting for companies to come to them that want assistance with trade from and to Africa. So I can send you his contact information if you reach out to me.
Okay. All
And
right.
there was a question here. Do you know of a program that will help U.S. citizens develop a product and then export?
Uh,
No, I don't know of a program. I would suggest maybe contacting SCORE or maybe one of our rep organizations to have a further discussion as to, to help you, with your vision, or maybe they can help suggest a product. I'm not sure. Eric, do you know of any?
Not necessarily to develop a product, but maybe something called the STEP grant, STEP, STEP grant. It stands for statewide, what is it? Statewide expansion, export expansion program, something like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
state trade expansion. Mhm.
yeah. And that's really to help U.S. companies export. It's a reimbursable grant. I think it's up to $10,000. And I think the money's tapped out this federal fiscal year. So you'll want to check back for Texas at least. So you'll want to check back October 1 when the federal fiscal year restarts, and hopefully that money will be replenished. But the idea behind it is you apply and you have a reason to apply, like, hey, I'm going to go to somewhere in South Africa. There's a conference there. It's going to help me develop customers and leads, and the whole trip's going to cost $10,000. And then once it's approved, you go out and spend the money. You come back, you give them a receipts, and they give you 75% of what you spent, up to $10,000. So it's a reimbursable. It's a grant. It's to help you export. It can be used for things like building a website. So when you say building a product, if there was a product specific thing that was going to be exported and it would cost up to 10,000, I mean, that potentially could be included. You'll want to check with them. But as far as, a government grant, large grant size to help you develop a product or service for export, I'm not aware of that specific scenario.
Okay. And then, Tanya, I see that Mr. Rango clarified his question. Did we ask that one already?
Let's ask the question again. He says, I asked if you have a customer is purchasing chemicals or we are providing specialized staffing, can they apply for working capital for such projects?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
And there were a
And
couple of
if-
questions about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, and if there's a specific transaction or you're ready to have that discussion, I would suggest reaching out to both LaTanya and myself, and we could set up a call.
Thank you for that. There were a couple of questions asking about the effectiveness of the gold key process.
Again, we will have Jason Wilson on next Tuesday. So Atika, Bati, you want to make sure that you register for next Tuesday, and we will certainly get that question answered, because as both LaTanya and Eric mentioned, that is a U.S. commercial services program.
And if I may, just real quickly,
Sure.
I was an exporter for 10 years and a part owner of a company that exported. And I used the gold key. So when we talk about efficacy, I was taking a trip to Nairobi, Kenya, called them a month before the trip, said I was going to Kenya, here's what I sell. And they usually need a larger turnaround time, but they were willing to consider. And I applied for the gold key. They set me up with about 10 buyers in Nairobi, Kenya, in a short turnaround. And one of them turned into a sale. So I am a poster child for gold key works.
Okay. That is wonderful. So Eric, can I ask, are you still in the exporting industry other than working in it, clearly?
No, I'm just a government public servant, so I'm just here to help
Okay.
these days.
Okay. Okay. Um,
And we will provide a recording once we receive the presentation directly from Ms. Darden. And it will have her contact information listed.
I think there was another question in the chat, Deirdre or Tanya, somebody.
They're just asking for Mrs. Darden's email address.
Oh, okay.
Latanya, LATAUNYA.Darden, DARDEN, @exim.gov. Exim is EXIM.gov. Oh, here's another one. Is there training that helps potential exporters? I think we answered this, to identify products to export. And someone says, I'm originally from East Africa.
I think a good answer or guide to that question would be, just as Eric pointed out, reaching out to or inquiring about the STEP program and using our rep network. Because again, to access any funding or grants, you are going to need an export business plan, just as you need a business plan to access funding for your domestic. So developing an export business plan is really key. And talking to one of our organizations that can assist you with that, I believe, is your best start.
And SCORE has a template of a business plan. If you don't already have one, they have a template on their website where you can go and plug in information and eventually spit out a business plan that you can always tweak.
All righty. Any other questions? I know, again, we've gotten a lot of information. So we want to make sure that we answer all of you all's questions. And I thank you so much, Ms. Bhatti. You said you've already registered for next week. We certainly look forward to seeing you. Any other questions, ladies? If not, Ms. Darden and Mr. Miller, it looks like we are giving you all some time back.
Thank you. Have a great day,
Thank
everyone.
you.
You too.
Yes.
This was wonderful, a wealth of information. So thank you both so much. And we are looking forward to our ever growing and expanding relationship and partnership with Exim.
Yes, thank you as well. And thank you for including Exim in today's program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you so much to all of our attendees. We appreciate you. We're glad that you took some time to spend with us this morning. As I said, please register for all 5 of our virtual sessions and then meet us here at 3100 Main in Houston, Texas on Tuesday, October 10th for our in-person session. And if you do that, we'll have a little something for you. So thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.